What is going on, New York Giants fans? D. Illa here. In this video, we're going to talk a little defense, okay? Not a topic that I really talk about on this channel very often. Haven't exactly been very enthusiastic about the personnel this team has decided to bring on for years. Kayvon Thibodeaux has been underwhelming. Brian Burns himself has been as advertised, except he can't play the run. For starters, let's talk about that. Our inability to stop the run. Much of this revolves around Kayvon Thibodeaux and Brian Burns. And everyone out here amongst this fan base, including content creators, they all want to point to the interior of our defensive line. When everyone fails to realize that teams are not running at the center of our defensive line. It's not necessarily Dex and the guy that's playing beside him. It is Brian Burns and it is Kayvon Thibodeaux. Abdul Carter ain't helping in that regard either. He's going to be a carbon copy of Brian Burns. He's going to be on that line of scrimmage on the edge. That quarterback's going to call a hike, and that offensive lineman's going to come firing off the ball. Yeah, let some big ham hawk eating offensive lineman get their grimy paws on Abdul Carter on that edge. And they're going to be like, "You're coming with me, son." He's going to be like, "Okay, sir." So all this talk about guys like Mason Graham and drafting a defensive tackle in the second round, I don't understand it. Maybe this team needs to go out and improve the linebacker core. You know, get some guys on the second level of that defense that can crash the line of scrimmage, can diagnose runs as they're happening, and help out Kayvon Thibodeaux when they have trouble sealing up running lanes. Because this is going to be a constant issue with them. And it's not something that's going to get better just by plugging somebody next to Dexter Lawrence. And let me ask everybody this question out here. When it comes to defense, look at your defense overall and all the positions that inhabit your defense, okay? You got your outside edge rushers, your outside linebackers, defensive tackles, nose tackles, cornerbacks, nickel corners, dime corners, safeties, free safeties, all these positions. Out of every single one of these positions, who is the least athletic out of the bunch? Your defensive tackles. Sure, they're big. Some of them can move pretty quick, shed blockers, can do stuff like that. But in the grand scheme of things, they're not the most athletic guys out on the field. Transition to the draft itself. This is a draft that is stockpiled with interior defensive linemen all throughout it. So why are we talking about drafting a guy like Mason Graham at 3 or possibly taking a guy in the second round? Those first 3 picks that the Giants have, they need to be devoted to true game-changing talent. I will never consider a defensive tackle that. To me, a defensive tackle is a slug. They are a slow-moving, big body that just clogs up running lanes. That is their main job. Everybody thinks just because we're going to draft a defensive tackle, they're miraculously going to turn into Jordan Davis, Dexter Lawrence, Vince Wilfork, Albert Haynesworth, all these other guys, man. The earliest I would look at a defensive tackle in this draft is with one of those third-round picks that we have, the 2 that we have. Give me a corner, give me a pass rusher, give me a safety, give me a linebacker, any day of the week over an interior defensive player on that defensive line. I keep on bringing this up on this channel. Like, there's teams all across the NFL that find late interior defensive linemen in drafts. They do it every single year. But for some reason, this franchise just can't seem to do it. I don't know what the problem is. It's like with the defensive tackle position in this fan base now, everyone has just taken Dave Gettleman's mind and has just applied it to our defense. You know, Dave Gettleman, that's all that man ever thought about was defensive tackles. There wasn't a defensive tackle out there that man didn't like. The fan base has just transitioned over to the Dave Gettleman way of thinking. And I don't agree with that at all. Because to me, the defensive tackle is the least valuable position out there on the football field for your defense. Hands down. I'm getting so tired of hearing about people wanting to bring these slugs in here. I just don't get it. I do not get it. To me, just give me somebody that's going to clog running lanes, can anchor down and keep an offensive lineman from blowing them off the ball. Just give me that. That's all I need. Maybe apply pressure to the quarterback's face every once in a while. It doesn't have to be as consistent as a guy like Dexter Lawrence gives it to you. Sure, it's nice to have, but your true pressure should be applied by your outside edge rushers and maybe blitzing linebackers, safeties, delayed blitzes, cornerbacks. That's where your pressure should come from. The interior guys should just hold their damn running lanes and hold things down on the inside as far as the running game goes. That's what I want them to do. That's it. But it seems like with the fan base now, everybody's just bought into the Shane Bowen ways of teaching that you should just be able to apply pressure with 4 down defensive linemen. Like, okay, man. All the creativity walked out the door when Wink left. Anybody that has half a brain knows this. I never wanted Shane Bowen here. He doesn't have the horses up front to do what he wants to do. primarily because he doesn't have two edge rushers that can hold the edge in the run game. And a lot of that has to do with the college football game itself because they don't produce prototypical defensive ends anymore. Guys like Julius Peppers, Myles Garrett, those guys are very few and far between. Justin Tucks, Michael Strahans, you don't find guys that can play the run and rush the passer very often. The guys that come out now, they're all tweeners, man. Most of them can't play the run. So you have to find additional ways to bring pressure and not just get pressure from 4 down defensive linemen. Unless you have a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. But again, not every team is stacked the way they are, especially at the interior, nor does anybody have the secondary that they do to be able to pull off the things that Philly does. And I think we can all agree at this point that this team still has a hell of a lot of building to do. But it seems like a lot of people out there are trying to do the same thing that Joe Schoen did last year. Try to fill voids on this football team that they believe desperately need to be filled. There's a lot of drafts coming up, man. There's a lot of free agent periods. The team's probably not going to be good for the next 3 to 4 years if we're lucky. There's time there to build the defensive tackle position, the interior of your line. It doesn't all have to take place this year. You don't bypass better talent at other positions just because you think Dexter Lawrence needs a running mate. I mean, there's other ways to improve your football team outside of drafting just defensive players. And I get we're the New York Giants. This whole entire franchise is built on defense. But good Lord, man, can we put some points on the board, please? Can we put some talent out there on the field on the offensive side of the ball that can actually sustain drives and keep the defense off the field? Can we do that?